Court is now resumed for the trial of Wallace Nightgrave. Let us review the proceedings from yesterday. It was revealed that the trace of necromancy may not have been left by the defendant. It may have been left by a witness who used necromancy to attempt to heal the victim. However, the victim was seen by witnesses well after her time of death. This could only be explained by the defendant using necromancy to animate the victim's body. This leaves the question, where did the murder take place? Does the prosecution have an answer for this? Based on the testimonies of several witnesses, it is very likely that the murder took place in the library. Interesting. What led you to this conclusion, Miss Steelwind? First, I'd like to remind the court where the victim was sighted before the body was found. It began when the victim had a meeting with the headmaster near the centre of the building. Our meeting was scheduled for 12 o'clock PM. According to my schedule for that day, our meeting lasted an hour. This brings us to the statement of the next witness, a student at the academy. This student saw the victim walking in the hallways. I saw her coming out of the headmaster's office. She was heading towards the library. Which means that our first witness saw Bellwether leave the headmaster's office. Presumably, this would have happened after her meeting there. That would time this encounter at around 1 o'clock. The other event is the discovery of the body, which was when Valentina Inius contacted security. I suddenly spotted the professor lying in a pool of blood in the classroom. Valentina used a communication device to call for help while I tried to save her. As we've already established, this event occurred at 3:04 PM. The significance of this time is in what occurred before the body was discovered. A second witness, a member of the cleaning staff, spotted the victim in the West Wing hallway. Bellwether knocked over a vase, and there were shards and dirt everywhere. It was probably 20 to 30 minutes before the twins found the body. This means that this encounter must have happened no later than 2:30 PM. And this implies that the victim was near the library between 1 o'clock and 2:30. According to the defendant's statements, he was in the library during this time period. Furthermore, the time of death was at 2:07. This means that Mr. Hughes saw the victim's animated body. I don't think there's anything there that doesn't make sense, so sure. I see. Your deduction certainly tracks, Miss Steelwind. What do you have to say in your defense, Mr. Cuthbert? The prosecution's argument is definitely well thought out, Your Honor. However, it's entirely predicated on the testimonies of all the witnesses involved. Your Honor, to test the validity of these claims, the defense would like both of these witnesses to testify. The defense calls Miriam Frieger to the stand. Frieger? I had a feeling it would come to this. Do you have any objections, Miss Steelwind? I do not, Your Honor. Very well. Bailiff, please escort Lady Frieger to the stand. Hello. Witness, please state your name and occupation for the... You little snakes. How dare you deceive me? Oh. It looks like she found out. Yeah, obviously. I had the opportunity to debrief the witness beforehand. Miss McCoy, for the record, I told you to exercise discretion. I did not mean that you should impersonate a member of my family. Yeah, sorry about that. Well, I have been thinking about this. She might actually be a Steelwind. If she is a noble of some variety, and she is from one of the 4 noble houses, which she might not be, but if she is, it's a 25% chance, which, that ain't terrible odds. I gave you all of the tea that I imported from the Eastern Kingdoms. I demand that you return it to me. How? Oh. You mean the undrunken tea? No, you gave them to me. They're legally mine now. I'm not sure what your business with the witness is, Miss McCoy. But I'd ask that you please handle your personal disputes outside of the courtroom. Anyways, Miriam, could you please testify to the court about your encounter with the victim? Very well. I was working on a research project in my dorm room when I decided to take a break. I left my room and went on a walk. That's when I saw Professor Bellwether exiting the headmaster's office. She was walking in my direction, so I greeted her and she responded in kind. After that, she headed toward the library. A short time after that, I went back to my room and continued my work. I see. So, it was only a brief encounter. However brief it was, the witness's testimony verifies 2 things. One is that Miss Frege saw the professor exiting the headmaster's office. The other is that she witnessed the victim head towards the library. This gives us a rough timeline of where the victim was before her death. That does seem consistent. Mr. Cuthbert, you may begin your cross-examination. Let me just have a little look back through here again. And we have a lot of evidence. Yes. Yes, we do have a lot of evidence. Well, I'm not sure there are any obvious contradictions right off the bat, so let's go through this thing. I don't see any point in pressing that in particular, but this, sure. And you're sure that you saw her exit the headmaster's office? Yes, I remember it clearly. I was surprised that she was still meeting with the headmaster at all. Did you interact with the professor at all, Miriam? Walking in my direction, so I greeted her and she responded in kind. That doesn't line up with some stuff that we heard before, so press. Did anything seem off about her? No, but it was a very short encounter. It's not as if we stopped to have a conversation. You said that you greeted her and she responded. What words did she use? But why is that important? Miss Frege, it's possible that someone used illusion magic that day. Every detail about the victim's interactions could be important. Well, I bid her good morning, and she said good morning in response. Bid her good morning, and she responded in kind. At 1 PM, no less.
Objection!
Miss Rieger, if I recall correctly, you have a habit of getting absorbed in your work. So much so that you'll even lose track of the time of day. Yes, but what does that have to do with my testimony? Earlier in today's proceedings, the prosecutor made the following argument. Our first witness saw Bellwether leave the meeting with the headmaster. That would time this encounter at around 1 PM. Miss Rieger, if you had said good morning to the professor, you would have been mistaken, because that encounter could only have happened during the afternoon. And your point is? You said it yourself, Mr. Cuthbert, the witness simply lost track of time. What the witness said isn't what's important here. The significance is in what the professor said in response. She'd just come out of a meeting that was scheduled for noon. She would be well aware that it was no longer morning. So why would she respond, good morning? Wouldn't she have corrected the witness? Their encounter was extremely short, and the victim's mind may have been preoccupied. She could have easily responded to the witness without thinking. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of agree with her. It's not hard to believe that they were both confused about the time. Miss Rieger, you haven't been entirely truthful in your testimony, have you? That's absurd. What reason would I have to lie? Every detail about how she acted is important, Miss Rieger. What aren't you telling us? Mr. Cuthbert, you have no basis to accuse the witness of perjury. Yes, you'll stop this at once. Miss Rieger, you're lying about how Bellwether responded to your greeting, aren't you? Miss Rieger, is it possible that Bellwether's response was less than friendly? What do you care? What difference does it make? My job is to make sure every part of your testimony is truthful. Every detail matters, no matter how seemingly insignificant. Mr. Cuthbert, you will stop this, or I'll find you in contempt. The professor yelled at you, didn't she, Miss Rieger? So what if she did? I'm sorry, but there's no going back on what you just said. So you do admit that she yelled at you? Ugh, you impertinent little... Yes, I admit it, the professor didn't greet me back that day. Oh, good morning, Professor. Be quiet. She yelled at me to be quiet! But until then, we had always been nothing but courteous with each other. I don't know what got into her that day, but something put her in a foul mood. But that's it. Everything else I said was the truth. I did see her come out of the headmaster's office and walk towards the library. So, is that all, Mr. Cuthbert? What do you mean, is that all? You badgered this witness, so all so you could prove what exactly? The witness committed perjury. The witness changed a small detail of her testimony. A detail that is inconsequential to the case. I wouldn't go that far. It was clearly an act with no malicious intent. The witness saw the victim leave the headmaster's office and head towards the library. Do you have any concrete evidence to refute that, Mr. Cuthbert? No, I suppose I don't. Wait, is this really okay? At this rate, this will be the only chance you have to cross-examine her. I don't think she's lying anymore. And I was really pushing my luck earlier. If I continue pressing her, the judge might actually charge me with contempt. The defence has no further questions for the witness, Miss Steelwind. Very well. Miriam, you are dismissed. Now, with that out of the way, what else do you have, Mr. Cuthbert? Steelwind, to test your theory, we must question every witness that saw the victim that day. So, with that said, the defense would like to call Jan Hughes to the stand. I hope you understand, Mr. Cuthbert. Your entire case rests on the assumption that one of the witnesses' accounts is incorrect. If your cross-examination of Mr. Hughes leads nowhere, then I hope you're ready to concede. Bailiff, please bring in Mr. Hughes. Witness, please state your name and occupation for the courtroom. Whenever you're ready. Witness, name and occupation. Right. My name is Jan Hughes. I'm on the cleaning staff of the Academy. Mr. Hughes, please testify to the court about your encounter with the Professor that day. Sure. I saw the Professor when I was cleaning the West Wing hallways. It was about 20 to 30 minutes before the body was discovered. She walked by me, but she looked pretty out of it. I heard she was undead when this happened. Pretty creepy, if you ask me. After that, she went into the empty classroom. Well, that was straightforward. Come on, Jan, what are we supposed to do with that? I don't know. You guys are the lawyers. I'm just telling you what I saw. Mr. Cuthbert, you may begin your cross-examination. Sure will. Did anything else look off about her? I mean, yeah, she was an undead after all. That remains to be proven. If you say so. Anyways, what was her demeanor like? She looked like she was in a bad mood. Either that or she was tired. But I guess she was just dead inside, literally. I believe you've forgotten a few details about what the Professor did. Yeah? Sorry, it's hard to remember these things sometimes. Did you hear her make any sounds? Oh, yeah. After she knocked over the vase, she yelled at me to be quiet. But I didn't even say anything. This detail could be extremely important. Please add it to your testimony, Mr. Hughes. Whatever you say, man. Let's see here. Reanimates the target using life energy. Minion follows the caster's orders, but its intelligence is limited and it cannot speak. Objection! Mr. Hughes, you said that Bellwether yelled at you. What were her exact words? I think she yelled at me to be quiet. What? I thought it was weird. I didn't even say anything. I know better than to talk back to her. That's the thing, Hughes. The prosecution's theory is such. The Professor was murdered in the library and was reanimated using Animate Corpse. With a quick illusion spell, no one would notice that she was undead. However, if what you saw was truly the undead Bellwether, how did she speak to you? Huh? This doesn't make any sense. Mr. Hughes, undead can follow simple orders, but they don't have the intelligence to speak. Perhaps the witness was mistaken. No, I'm sure I heard her yell at me. I remembered because what she said didn't make any sense. Exactly, he didn't say anything, but she still yelled at him to be quiet. I'm afraid I don't understand. We've already established that the victim was dead long before her encounter with Mr. Hughes. But if what he saw wasn't an undead, what was it? It had to be an undead. What other explanation is there? I can think of one. And it needs to be something that can speak in Balwither's voice. That's it! Do you have an answer for us, Mr. Cuthbert? What did the witness actually see? Your Honor, the witness didn't actually hear the dead victim speaking. What he actually heard was her voice being recreated using magic. Are you trying to say her voice was recreated using a spell? Not a spell, Steelwind, it was artificery. And whoever the murderer is, they had the perfect piece of artificery available to them. One programmed with Catherine Balwither's voice. You can't possibly mean... That's right, Steelwind. What Mr. Hughes saw was an arcane construct. An arcane construct? Think of it as a magically animated suit of armor, Your Honor. But we ruled out such a possibility, hadn't we? Construct or not, no one could disguise themselves and carry the body to the classroom. A person wouldn't have been able to do it. But arcane constructs are a different thing entirely. Those suits of armor are extremely large, but more importantly, they're hollow. I see. That means that theoretically, someone could have placed the victim's body inside it. The arcane construct wouldn't just transport the body. With an illusionary disguise, it would also confuse and mislead anyone who saw it.
Objection!
I commend your deduction, Mr. Cuthbert. I would never have considered that possibility. It's certainly plausible, but what does this prove exactly? It proves that the body wasn't animated using necromancy. My client isn't the murderer. The defendant is still capable of performing all the acts that you described. His compendium contains illusionary disguise, after all. There were several students in the library that day. Any of them could have committed the murder. One might come to that conclusion if they didn't have one crucial piece of evidence. I'd like to present a new piece of evidence to the court. Ah, it is the sword in question, at last. Yes, Your Honor. This is the murder weapon. She was saving that for the perfect moment, wasn't she? This rapier was reported stolen by Miriam Frager weeks before the murder, and during the investigation it was finally found in the defendant's locker. But wait! He was clearly trying to use one of her possessions in a paltry attempt to frame her. Why, he even stole her locker's nameplate and placed it over his. We're basically back to square one, aren't we? Anyone could have told that construct to do all those things. Where are we? So much evidence. You want me to present a profile, do you? Fine. Let's get to it, then. Mr. Hughes, you said that Balwither yelled at you. What were her exact words? I think she yelled at me to be quiet. She yelled at me to be quiet. But until then, we had always been nothing but courteous with each other. I don't know what got into her that day, but something put her in a foul mood. Be quiet! Sorry. Be quiet! The construct's voice is just a series of pre-recorded messages. I'm not sure if you noticed, but it uses the voice of Professor Bellwether. Unfortunately, you can't make them say anything other than what's recorded. Only the headmaster can change those settings. No, it can't be him. I think you'll find it can. What is it, Tyrion? Did you figure something out? I did. Miss Steelwind, earlier you said that my client could have orchestrated this entire ruse. But that's simply not true. How so? Anyone could have ordered the construct to carry out the victim's body. Yes, but not everyone can change what the constructs are able to say. Only one individual has the credentials for that. Theodore Redmond, headmaster of the Imperial Academy. Wait, you're not serious, are you? You think the headmaster did all this? I do! And I've thought it for a while now. I don't want to believe it. But he's the only person who could have done it. That's completely ridiculous. Headmaster Redmond would never do something like this. Miss Steelwind, there's one common element between each of the witnesses' encounters with Bellwether. It's what Bellwether said to them. She yelled at both of them to be quiet. Miriam Frieger was particularly surprised. She had a good relationship with the Professor. But when greeted by the Professor, Bellwether just shouted at her. Almost as if the Professor was responding indiscriminately. And recall her encounter with Jan Hughes. The Professor knocked over Vraze and shouted at him to be quiet immediately after. Even though he hadn't said anything. She was responding to the sound of the vase breaking. Now let me ask you this, Steelwind. Where did Bellwether come from before she encountered Miss Frieger and Mr. Hughes? Her meeting with the headmaster. It appears that the defense truly means to indict Theodore Redmond. Indict. Indickety-dogdity-doo. And I do. And yeah, I figured things were heading this way for a while. If so, we have no choice but to take a brief recess until he can be brought here. There's no need. Fortunately for you, I'm already in the gallery. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cuthbert, but do you think I am the one who committed this crime? I'm sorry, Redmond. And no matter how I look at it, everything I found points to you. No, there's no need to apologize. In fact, I should commend you on the length that you're going to defend dear Wallace. The court appreciates your understanding, Mr. Redmond. Now then, to clear the air, I suppose I should give my testimony on what happened that day. I suppose you should. And I suppose you will. That day I had a meeting scheduled with the Professor at noon. She showed up at the expected time and we discussed various administrative matters. Our meeting went on for an hour, after which she left to prepare for her next class. Despite our many disagreements, we still knew how to be civil with each other. After all, I had no reason to bear a personal grudge against her. I just can't see it. He seems like such a nice person. Is he really the person we're looking for? He has to be. No one else could have orchestrated this entire plot. I think I already know why as well, if we're going in that direction. Really? Even after the way she's acted towards the students and faculty? Make no mistake, I've heard many complaints regarding her actions. And I've had many conversations with her to try and correct her behaviour. But at the end of the day, she was a remarkable professor, regardless of her lack of people skills. His testimony pretty much matches what we know so far. I'm not entirely sure if he's lying or not, but at the very least we know that he was involved in the professor's murder. But why? But why indeed?
Objection!
Redmond, did you really hold no amnesty toward Professor Bellwether? Of course not. I did have strong opinions about her methods of teaching, but I always remained professional. We both did. Frankly, I find that hard to believe. In fact, I think you might have had a very good reason to murder the Professor, considering that she was going to take your job. What? So you knew about that? I'm sorry, but I don't follow. Just how is the Professor going to take the headmaster's job? According to Miriam Frieger, Catherine Bellwether was currying favour with the noble families. In fact, there was a plan to oust Mr. Edmund and appoint Bellwether as the new headmaster of the academy. But what? But in any case, I doubt that the headmaster had any idea of this until now. I'd like to remind the court of the witness's reaction just now. He said, "So you knew about that." His reaction was one of surprise. But he wasn't surprised by this information. He was surprised that I knew this information. That's... Please, dear Arya. I may be a frail old man, but I'm perfectly capable of defending myself. If you have an explanation, Mr. Edmund, then by all means, I'd love to hear it. Gladly. It is true that I knew about the Friegers' plot beforehand, but I had only just learned about it. On the day of the murder, the professor told me about her plan. She was going to replace me as headmaster and replace the staff with her arcane constructs. Now, you might say that this would have given me the perfect motive to murder the professor. However, the supposed murder weapon was stolen from Miss Frieger. This happened weeks before the murder and my discovery of the professor's treachery. I had no knowledge of their plan before she told me, and therefore I wouldn't have known to steal Miss Frieger's weapon in an attempt to frame her. Are you satisfied now, Mr. Cuthbert? There is no way that the headmaster could have come up with this plan. If he really did do this, that means he stole the rapier too, right? Most likely. His alibi makes sense. He couldn't have planned this whole thing unless he knew about Bellwether's plans. That would mean he knew about this weeks ago. But how did he even find out? The best way to tell a convincing lie is to leave a lot of truths and only change one detail. Maybe Bellwether did tell him, but he actually told him weeks ago. Mr. Cuthbert, you may begin your cross-examination. I think we have heard that he did as well from Jan before. But do I have that in evidence anywhere? I'm not sure that I do. Therefore, I'm probably gonna have to do some pressing. Oh, no. It's in here already. In fact, I can probably just present it right here.
Objection!
No. Here, then?
Objection!
Also no. Fine. I think that should have worked, but I guess I'll press some stuff. Not sure why that didn't count, honestly. It was my understanding that the Friggers wanted to keep this a secret until the very end. Why would Bellwether, of all people, tell you about her betrayal? I imagine she wanted to taunt me with that information. We've long had our disagreements, and looking back, she may have resented me for that. And at that point, there wasn't anything I could do to stop her. Really? I thought you and the Professor were on good terms. I'd thought so too, but I suppose it was all a facade. She was just biding her time until she could take my position as headmaster.
Objection!
That definitely should work. Fine, let's just press everything. As the headmaster, you'd probably have the tools available to get into her room. Yes, I will admit that. The Academy has a master key that can be used to enter each of the students' dorms. And yes, as headmaster, I would have access to that key. Then you had the perfect way to get into her room and steal the rapier undetected. I suppose I did. However, there's one flaw with your logic. With the Professor dead, you won't have to worry about losing your job. At least not for a while. I suppose you're correct, but there are others who benefit too. The faculty staff is now aware of the Frieger's plot. With her plot delayed, they won't need to worry about abruptly losing their jobs either. It must have infuriated you. Your colleague betrayed you and attempted to steal your job. I'm only human. Of course I was taken aback. I've been headmaster of the Imperial Academy for decades. To think that the Professor and the board would go around my back like that. So, you only learned about it recently? Doesn't that seem a bit too convenient for you? It may appear that way, yes. But
Objection!
really? That particular line of testimony? He's making pretty much the same point throughout his entire testimony. I should have been able to present that anywhere. Oh well. Redmond, you keep saying that you didn't know about Bellwether's plot before yesterday. Do you still plan on standing behind that claim? Of course I am, because it's the truth. I'm sorry, Redmond, but you should really close your doors during your meetings. What? It is true that Bellwether revealed her plan to you during one of your meetings. In fact, Jan Hughes happened to overhear that same meeting, but he only overheard the part where the staff would be replaced. And that's the strangest part, Redmond. According to Mr. Hughes, this meeting occurred weeks ago. You can't accuse the headmaster of perjury based on a rumour. Everything you've just said is based on second-hand information. Mr. Hughes distinctly overheard that the staff would be replaced with arcane constructs. That is too specific and too accurate to presume he misheard a different conversation. The professor probably only revealed her plan for the arcane constructs. That still doesn't prove that he knew about her treachery beforehand. Professor Bellwether had no authority over the cleaning staff's employment. It wouldn't make sense for her to just reveal her plan for the arcane constructs. That would only make sense if he knew that Bellwether would be taking his job. So, tell me one thing, Redmond. Why did you find the need to lie about this? Is it because you saw a need to protect yourself from my accusations? Redmond, I asked you a question. Did you murder Catherine Bellwether? What a fine mess this is. Headmaster? So, you truly plan on pushing this, do you? Well, your thesis sounded promising, Mr. Cuthbert. But I believe your arguments could use a little work. You think I killed Catherine Bellwether? Me? I am an elderly man in his late 80s. I can barely walk, much less wield a rapier. But you and Bellwether weren't the only people in that room, were you? You needed the arcane construct to carry Bellwether's body. That means that the construct would have already been in your office. And with your privileges, you could have easily programmed the construct to stab Bellwether for you. Even so, think about what would have transpired afterward. Recall Miss Steelwind's timeline of Bellwether's witnesses. With your theory, the construct would have spent more than an hour in the library. Having it there would have risked my so-called ruse from being discovered. Redmond, what you're saying clearly doesn't match with what you're thinking. What kind of weak assertion is that? Whoa, that's an expression. How could you possibly know what I'm thinking? Oh, The timing deduced from Miss Friega's testimony is predicated on one thing. She saw Miss Bellwether exit your office after your meeting. However, if we assume that you're lying about when this meeting ended, your entire argument falls apart. Miss Friega would have encountered Bellwether after her death at 2:01 PM. But Miss Friega wouldn't have made a mistake like that. Miss Friega thought that it was morning when she saw Bellwether. She can't reliably tell the time. Then what about where the rapier was placed? If I really was the murderer, then that would mean I planted the weapon in young Wallace's locker. Several of the students had lockers there that I had access to. Wallace is one of my prized students. If I had to frame anyone, he would be the last person I chose. You're right, Mr. Redmond. You wouldn't try to frame Wallace, but you would try to frame Miriam Frieger. It would have been the perfect act of revenge, wouldn't it? You murder your treacherous co-worker and frame the daughter of the family that helped her. But something went wrong, didn't it, Redmond? The labels in Wallace's locker and Miriam's locker were switched. Anyone who saw that could have easily mixed them up. I am the headmaster of the Imperial Academy. I have records of all the students' lockers and where they're located. If I truly planned this, I would have known where Wallace's locker was. A simple change in labels wouldn't have led me to make a careless mistake like that. I wonder. But it wasn't you, was it? Your Arcane construct was the one who planted the rapier in the locker. I bet you commanded it to place this rapier in the locker of Miriam Frieger. But it saw the ID number in Wallace's locker and assumed that it was Miriam's. This is... Is Steelwind, say something. What? Ugh. Mr. Cuthbert, your theory may be plausible, but there's no evidence to support it. Huh, that's right. You don't have any proof, do you? Saying that I could have committed the murder isn't the same as proving I did it. Yes, the command log. It's probably been cleared by now, though. Oh, yes it is. Well, now I have to go through all this again. Your Arcane construct is still in the locker room where it planted the rapier. All we have to do is take a look inside it and we'll see the blood inside. Is that so, Mr. Cuthbert? No, Mr. Cuthbert, I already checked the inside of that construct during my investigation. The interior was completely clean. What? The construct's primary function is to assist and clean, dear Tyrion. They have a function that allows them to clean themselves inside and out. But well, we can still look at its command history, right? Think about it, Mr. Cuthbert. Do you honestly think that the murderer would leave behind evidence like that? I'm sure that whoever orchestrated this plot, they ordered the construct to wipe its logs when it was finished. No. That's right, Mr. Cuthbert. Your case against me is theoretical at best. But I suppose I can still give you marks for trying. Huh, it's unbecoming to glare like that, young Tyrion.
Naught can remain concealed.
Well, let's see. We have this, which is awfully suspicious that I learnt about right near the beginning of the case and hasn't come back up yet. I wonder, did I leave any other pieces of evidence behind? I was far too reckless, but I needed some way to keep that lecture hall empty. That makes sense. I did everything I could to cast doubt on Frigga's brat. I can't believe Valerie placed a trace of necromancy on the body. To make matters worse, the construct planted the evidence in the wrong locker. I mean, yeah, the documents as well, clearly. The construct's orders were clear. Plant the body in Lecture Hall 2B, and then plant the evidence in Frigga's locker. It was supposed to head to the storage room afterward. What happened? Something must have interrupted its program then. But what? Da 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 da. I had to do everything I could to shift guilt away from myself, but did I leave any holes in my alibi? No, I accounted for everything. There's no way I left any evidence behind. The construct's orders were clear. Plant the body and da-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. Let's have a look at this map again. The locker room isn't even pictured on here. Decidedly unhelpful. I can't believe I put myself into this mess for Bellwether of all people. Why do I feel remorse for her? She deserved what happened to her. Why am I thinking of this now? My illusion should have been flawless. I can't believe this boy was able to deduce what happened. This is all the nobility's fault. This whole time they were plotting to throw me out. It's their fault that Bellwether is dead, not mine. Her blood is on the hands of the Friggas and the Steel Winds. Why was the construct in the locker room, though? It shouldn't have been there if it had followed my orders. No matter, it wiped its logs. They have nothing on me. That means they're not wiped. Yeah, and I haven't got much of an idea about what, unfortunately. Right. The body was probably reported earlier than Redmond expected. This means that he probably started the lockdown before the construct was finished in the locker room. Right, I get ya. The series of commands would have been interrupted. Wait a minute. Construct execute a series of commands in the order they are given, but let's say one of the commands is impossible, then it Construct's final command was to wipe its memory, but if its orders were interrupted by the lockdown, then... Miss Steelwind, I have nothing more to ask this witness. What? You're not giving up, are you? Do you even have to ask? Yeah, I thought so. But how are you going to prove he did it if he's not testifying? Don't worry, the next witness's testimony will be all I need. Next witness? That look on your face isn't one of defeat. It's what are you planning? It's nothing but desperate bravado. Now, if you'll excuse me. You've let your quarry get away, Mr. Cuthbert. I hope you know what you're doing. I do, Miss Steelwind. First, I'd like for the Inquisition to bring in the Arcane construct in the Academy's locker room. We've already established that the murderer could have wiped its history. Please, just humour me for a second, Miss Steelwind. Very well. Bailiff, please relay Mr. Cuthbert's request to Commander White. Well, here's your construct. I hope you know what you're doing, Mr. Cuthbert. Construct. What are your orders? Please recite your command history. Reporting. Command 1, stand by in Headmaster's office. Command 2, wide vocal signal attack from Theodore Redmond. Command 3, treat Catherine Bellwether as a hostile entity and neutralize. Construct, wipe your... Hodel! Well, that stopped that. Stopza and all. But Miss Steelwind? Excuse the interruption. Please continue. Command 4, await vocal signal leave from Theodore Redmond. Command 5, move to classroom 2B, reply to any inquiries with voice line number 3. Command 6, remove Catherine Bellwether from interior frame and place on floor. Thank you, Construct. You can stop now, I think we all know the rest. But just to be clear, who gave you this series of commands? Commands were provided by Headmaster Theodore Redmond. How? How? I ordered the construct to wipe its command history. Mr. Redmond, constructs don't follow the same logic that humans do. They're prone to error when their commands are impossible to execute. Impossible? In what way were my commands impossible? You are the one that made it impossible. You activated the lockdown system. The lockdown. The body was found earlier than you'd like. You had no choice but to immediately activate the lockdown system when it was reported. However, the construct was still in the locker room when you did this. So that's why it was there. The construct finished its tasks in the locker room, but then it tried to follow your next command. It tried to move to the storage room, but was prevented from doing so. Completion of that command was impossible, so the series of commands was stopped before it wiped its history. You little... Theodore Edmund, you ordered your construct to murder Catherine Bellwether. Then you had it place the murder weapon in a locker to frame Miriam Frieger. And we have your construct's testimony to prove it. That's pretty unequivocal. And that's checkmate. I can't believe it. How could you do something like this, Headmaster? She was going to take everything from me. My position, my academy, my students. Everything would be gone. It was going to be stolen by her and the Friegers. Why didn't you say anything to me? I could have... Don't you dare stand there and act ignorant, Lady Steelwind. Do you think the Friegers acted alone? Your father was a part of this plot too. What? I have nothing to say to you. I thought you were different. I listened to your lies about societal reform. In the end, you were just like the rest of the aristocracy. By the Scaled Lord, what have I done? I was even willing to sacrifice poor Wallace. I can't believe Why did I do this? It appears we have a full confession. Yeah, apart from the bit where he was stopped just now. But never mind that. Carry on. The court sees no reason to prolong this any further. Bailiff, please escort the witness to a holding cell. Can't reveal the big bad too early now, can we? Mr. Cuthbert, you really did it. It feels amazing, right? Like a big weight being lifted from your shoulders. It does, but I can't believe the headmaster was the one who did this. I'm sorry. I'm sure this is bittersweet for you. What am I going to do now? Headmaster Edmund was the only reason I could even attend the academy. With him gone... Come on, don't think like that. You got acquitted. I'm sure it will all work out. Hey, don't you get all sad on me too. Sorry, I was just thinking. With Redmond gone, the Friegers will probably just appoint another sycophant as the headmaster. Valentina, Valerie, and Jan. They're all going to lose their jobs. Come on, you found the truth and you put a murderer behind bars. You saved Wallace. She's right. At the end of the day, you saved Wallace from a wrongful conviction. You should be proud of yourself for that. I suppose you're right. Maybe I am just overthinking things. Oh, come on! I'm taking Wallace to that restaurant we went to last time. Do you remember how much that place cost? Don't worry, I have plenty of gold. Am I the only one on this team not making any gold? Why don't you meet us there, Celeste? I need to talk with Tyrion for a moment. Alright. Let's go, Wallace. Okay. You activated the Empowered Eye again, didn't you? I did. I didn't really have a choice. The Eye of Horus is a powerful tool, Tyrion. But that's twice now that you've used the Empowered Eye to get out of a tough spot. You can't just keep relying on it if you want to grow as an attorney. One day you'll find a witness that the Empowered Eye won't work on. It's worked for me this far, though. But I suppose you're right. I'll try to rely on it next. Less next time. And that marked the end of another case in my career as a defense attorney. Another life saved, and another murderer brought to justice. But I still couldn't shake this feeling of uneasiness. Was it guilt for what would happen to the faculty staff? Or was it something else? Man, Stillwind has been talking with the perp for hours. What's there to even ask at this point? Turns out she doesn't trust his testimony. Something about his memories not matching up with the crime scene. You don't think he has mage blight, does he? No, it's not that. She found that damn symbol etched into his desk. What did she call it? The purple mark? Oh, for the love of... not this again. Look, if the little lady wants to chase the boogeyman, just let her. At least this time she's doing it personally instead of dragging us into it. Cast sleep? Hey! What's up with... Who did this to your desk? What has gotten into you? I've already admitted to everything. What more could you possibly want from me? Where did this graffiti come from? What is this symbol? What is the purple mark? I don't know. A student must have done it at some point. Think very hard, Headmaster. When did you receive this purple symbol? Focus on the moment you received this. Wait. Wait a minute. I remember it now. But how? Lady Steelwind? Lady Steelwind! Aria, what happened? Are you okay? That was close. My elation over meeting him almost made me forget. Eris, what are you doing here? Why? Wait, I remember it now. It was you. You put those ideas into my mind. You're the one who told me to murder Bellwether. Oh, you humans never fail to amaze me. I didn't make you do anything. Everything you did that day, all the planning, all the preparation, that came from your own mind. And I have to say I was quite entertained with the scheme you came up with. Why, you even broke into Miriam's room. I didn't know you had it in you, old man. You made me forget about our conversation. But how? Illusions can't affect the mind. Magic can't affect the mind. It's a shame, though. I would have much rather turned Wallace into the antagonist of this chapter. Could you imagine if he turned? It would have been spectacular. Armies of the undead running rampant in the streets. But alas, even I couldn't corrupt his pure soul. Answer me. Who are you? What are you? Who am I? I'm the Lord of the Sixth Circle. Do 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 do.